The Massillon Cemetery was quiet, a place where time seemed to stand still. Snow fell on the old stones, blanketing them in a soft white shroud. Each flake seemed to carry a story from the past, a whisper of those who lay beneath. A cold wind howled through the trees like a whisper. It was past midnight and the air was filled with an eerie stillness, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. The only light came from the moon and the stars, casting long shadows that danced across the snow-covered ground. The snow glistened, beautiful and dangerous, reflecting the moonlight like 1,000 tiny mirrors. It was a serene yet haunting sight. Something was moving down there in the darkness between the stones. A shadow, barely perceptible, flitted from one grave to another. The old crypts lined the far wall of the cemetery, their stone facades weathered by time and elements. They stood like silent guardians, their stone doors heavy with time. Each crypt held secrets, stories of lives long gone. Inside, the dead slept, or so everyone thought. The air inside the crypts was thick with the scent of decay and the weight of history. The wind seemed to pick up, whistling through the trees. It was as if the cemetery itself was breathing, alive with unseen forces. It carried a new sound now, a low moan coming from deep within the earth. The dead were restless, their whispers growing louder, echoing through the night. A hand, grey and stiff, burst through a crypt door. Stone crumbled and fell. The hand clawed at the air, searching for something to grip, something to hold. A moment later, a figure pushed through the broken door, emerging slowly. It was tall and gaunt, its clothes rotting and torn, hanging in tatters. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, piercing the darkness. More hands broke through the ground, followed by more figures rising slowly. Soon, dozens of zombies were shambling through the cemetery, filling it with dread. They moved slowly at first, as if shaking off a long sleep, awakening, but their movements were becoming more sure, more purposeful. They were hungry, very hungry. The zombies lumbered through the cemetery, heading south. They moved like a silent wave, their moans lost in the wind. They passed by the old graves and the new, their hunger growing with each step. They were drawn to the lights of the city, to the warmth of the living. They reached the southern edge of the cemetery, their eyes fixed on the buildings in the distance. The smell of oil and metal drifted towards them. It was not the scent of life they craved, but it was something. They stumbled over the cemetery wall and into the night. Section 4. Snow falling on steel. The industrial zone was a maze of warehouses and factories. Snow covered everything, a blanket of white over the grime and rust. The only signs of life were the dim lights of the Brinks armored truck station at the edge of the zone. Inside, guards watched security monitors, unaware of the danger approaching. The zombies entered the industrial zone like shadows. They moved between the buildings, their footsteps muffled by the snow. They were getting closer to the Brinks station, drawn by the lights, by the promise of something, anything, to sate their hunger. Section 5. Massillon Stand Strong. The alarm shrieked through the Brinks station. The guards, startled, looked up from their monitors. They saw them then, the horde of zombies shambling towards the station, their eyes burning with an unholy light. The guards grabbed their weapons. They had a job to do, a town to protect. The first wave of zombies crashed against the station doors. They slammed against the steel, their moans turning into enraged growls. The guards opened fire, their guns spitting fire into the night. The zombies fell, but more took their place, relentless, unstoppable. The battle for Massillon had begun. Section 6. Sealing the Crypts. The night was dark and filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the distant howls of the undead. The cemetery gates stood tall, casting long shadows under the pale moonlight. The battle raged through the night. The air was thick with the sounds of gunfire, the clash of metal, and the guttural growls of the zombies. Snowflakes fell, mingling with the blood and sweat of the fighters. The people of Massillon, alerted to the threat, joined the fight. They came from all corners of the town, armed with whatever they could find, ready to defend their home. They fought with shotguns and hunting rifles, their hands steady despite the fear that gripped their hearts. With baseball bats and tire irons, they swung with all their might, each blow a desperate attempt to push back the encroaching darkness. They fought with the courage born of desperation, a fierce determination to protect everything they held dear. The courage to protect their homes, their families, their way of life. Mothers shielded their children, fathers stood guard, and neighbors looked out for one another. And slowly the tide began to turn. The relentless onslaught of the undead began to waver under the townspeople's united front. The townspeople pushed the zombies back, inch by bloody inch. Every step forward was hard fought, every victory a testament to their resolve. They drove them back through the industrial zone, back towards the cemetery, the once bustling area now a battleground, echoing with the cries of the living and the dead. Finally, as the sun began to rise, painting the snow with hues of pink and orange, the last zombie fell. The first light of dawn brought a semblance of hope to the weary fighters. They had won, but they knew this was only the beginning. The battle had been fierce, but the war was far from over. They had to make sure the dead stayed dead. Plans were made, strategies discussed, and every precaution taken to prevent another uprising. They sealed the crypts with concrete and steel, burying the evil within. The heavy doors were welded shut, ensuring that the horrors of the night would not escape again. The Massillon Zombie Showdown, as it came to be known, was a night no one who lived through it would ever forget. It was a night that started like any other, with the town settling into its usual quiet routine. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, an unsettling feeling began to creep through the streets. It was a night of terror and courage, where ordinary people found themselves facing extraordinary circumstances. The fear was palpable, but so was the bravery. It was a night of loss and of unity. Families were torn apart, but the community came together in ways they never had before. The bonds formed that night were unbreakable. It was a night that proved that even in the face of unimaginable horror, the human spirit could triumph. As dawn broke, the survivors stood together, exhausted but resolute, knowing they had faced the worst and come out stronger. But the fight is not over. The threat remains, lurking in the shadows, waiting for another chance to strike. The story of what happened in Massillon must be told. Every detail, every act of heroism, every moment of fear. It is a story that needs to be shared, so that others can learn and prepare. The world needs to know that the dead can walk, that the unimaginable can become reality. The eerie silence of the cemetery is a stark reminder of what lies beneath. They can be stopped, but only if we are prepared. Preparation is our best defense against the unknown, but preparation requires knowledge, and knowledge must be shared. We must come together, strategize, and be ready for whatever comes next. Tell your friends, your family, your neighbors, tell the world, spread the word, share the knowledge, and ensure that everyone is ready. Because you never know when the dead might rise again. And when they do, we must be ready to face them together.